for us, strategy is identifying target market, core message, customer journey, execution, calendar, growth priorities. Like in a nutshell, that's what we do when we're developing strategy. So it's a mix of research and then planning. But at the end of a strategy presentation, we're literally saying, this is exactly what you should do from a marketing perspective over the next quarter. You can run with it, or you can hire us and we'll implement all of it for you. And so it gives a lot of purpose, direction, focus in your marketing. And so then from there, when we shift into a retainer engagement with a client, we map all of the projects, tasks, deadlines out in a project management tool that we use. And essentially then whenever a client says, oh, I have this idea, I have this idea, I have this idea, it's great idea. We'll put it in, on the bottom of this project management board that, we can discuss next quarter when we're doing our quarterly strategic planning. But we've already gone through the whole process. We've already mapped out the whole plan. We're not going to get distracted because you heard your competitor is doing this and now you think you should as well, ultimately. So that whole process in terms of like taking the time to map it out and reviewing it with your client and having them agree on it, and then visually putting it in a project management board and telling them that you're going to stick to it is the best way, I think, to avoid all the shiny object ideas that come through.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the High Level Spotlight Sessions, where we showcase awesome marketers doing awesome marketing. I'm Chase Buckner. Today, I'm joined by Sara Nay. She's the COO at Duct Tape Marketing, which is a marketing strategy. They're marketing strategy experts who have worked with thousands of businesses and agencies over the years. Sara, thanks so much for coming on.
I'm so excited to chat with you today. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm always pumped to talk with folks from Duct Tape. I know you guys have a stellar reputation as far as helping both businesses and agencies grow. And so I'm excited to talk, get some tips and tricks and insights from you about how you guys help all those agencies along the way.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk and dive into it more as well. In my role at Duct Tape Marketing, I run our operations, but I also run our sales. And through that, literally over the last 12 years, I've spoken with thousands of agency owners and consultants over the years. And so I have a lot of, hopefully, some helpful information to share in terms of what I've learned.
Well, before we hit record, we were kind of talking about what seems to be one of the biggest areas for improvement that you guys find when you work with agencies, which is true in my experience as well, right? And it's the age-old adage of, the cobbler's children have no shoes, right? Like we spend all our time focusing on our clients and what we're going to do for them, and we don't set up solid foundation for ourselves, for our own agency, right? Like what is our plan for acquiring? What is our plan for onboarding, retaining? Is that one of the biggest sort of pitfalls that you run into or help fix when you work with a new agency?
Yeah, absolutely. So I found that when someone's just getting started, their first challenge is generating leads. Obviously, they have to have some business coming in the door. So that's like their immediate challenges. I have to establish my agency. I have to start generating leads and converting those leads, and then I'll figure out everything from there. And then I see, when someone starts generating leads and working with clients and they're developing some of their processes and systems, I see this all the time where they get really involved in their clients and the marketing for their clients that their own businesses takes a back seat. And so all of a sudden, like lead generation again takes less of a focus because they're so busy in working with the clients that they have. And so that's honestly the number one growth challenge I have seen from people we've worked with over the years. It's either they're getting started and they need new clients, or they're established, they've been in business for a little while, but they're just too involved in their clients. And so they don't have processes, systems, teams, members in place to be able to help run those engagements. So they're able to take a step back and focus on, okay, now we're at this point of our business. How do we get to the next level? What are our growth goals? Okay, what do we need to do in order to reach those goals?
And like, as far as what you actually help people action out, is it, hey, just X amount of time per day or X amount of time per week needs to be spent on your own systems versus your clients?
Yeah, I encourage a lot of people to honestly like set an appointment on your calendar with yourself to focus on working on your business and taking a step back and looking at big pictures and determining your goals. And then when you're mapping out your priorities to every single week, are these priorities going to get you closer to your business growth goals and not just the growth goals of your clients? And so I'm a big believer in, setting that time on your calendar every single week and prioritizing based on where you're going to make the most of impact ultimately.
Yeah, I can remember it being like, oh shoot, our prospecting pool is dry. Like,
Yeah.
let's shut everything down and focus on that. And then you're like, oh shoot, like fires are happening because we're not spending enough time on the clients. And I think that's especially true when you're just getting started and it's like you and one other person or you and a handful of people. Um, but yeah, it's very easy to sort of forget about your own pipeline and your own systems.
Yeah.
Do you help people with, I feel like one thing I'm always shocked with both businesses and agencies is that they haven't fleshed out like a standing offer that consistently brings in leads, like an
Yeah.
assessment or survey or some sort that just lives on your homepage, lives on your social landing page, all that kind of stuff. Is that something that you guys help folks like establish and put together? Like, hey, you need just an offer that always exists.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I always talk about like, what are you ultimately trying to sell? So what's your main product offering? And then from there, I think you can back into what's the assessment or what's the content upgrade or what's the thing that's going to get people's attention, kind of top of the funnel piece. But I think it's really important to standardize some packages that you're going to offer, not saying as a marketing agency, it's like, okay, this is what we offer every single person and this is all we do, but having an idea of what your packages look like, then help you educate people through your sales cycle and conversion cycle ultimately. And so for us, like we're really big on strategy before we move into any packages. And then after strategy, which is like a 30 to 45-day engagement, we move into retainer packages where we're keeping clients for years and years, handling all of their digital marketing efforts, essentially. Like that's our main offering. And so because I know exactly what we're doing in strategy to get started, I know price point, I know deliverables, I know pain points that people have before they enter into a strategy engagement with us, that then helps dictate what we're going to do from getting people's attention on the front end. And so we have a marketing assessment where people can take it and get a score and see where their gaps are. And then we continue to educate and nurture them along the way. And if they realize, I really want to work on some of these things, then, oh, we have a specific package that can help solve your problems. And so I think it starts with what are you selling?
Mm-hmm.
And then allows you to map out the whole process from there ultimately.
Well, let's talk about packages for a minute because I feel like when you're just getting started, you're typically somebody's good at something, right? Like maybe
Yeah.
you build websites or maybe you're really good at Google Ads. Or maybe you took a course and you learned how to generate Facebook leads or something. And then you get some clients, but they start asking you for other stuff, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
can you guys do SEO as well? Or do you do reputation management, things like that? Is Duct Tape like a network for services as well, where you guys will like fulfill for people to fill in the gaps, or how do you help people kind of grow their offerings?
Yeah, I think it's really common, as you identified. People get really good at one specific thing in marketing and they start generating clients and growing. And then all the clients start asking for others. Oh, you're in marketing, you know how to do this, this, and this. Like that's a common thing we see all the time. And I think you have a couple options. Either grow your agency and start hiring full-time staff that specialize in those areas. You can learn more yourself in terms of skill sets and things you want to evolve into. Or the model that we help a lot of people with is more of a developing partnerships and relationships to be able to offer a full range of services. And so we have a consultant network, which are agencies and consultants that are basically certified in duct tape marketing. And through that, they get to follow our system process tools to work with small businesses. But one piece of that is we also have a partner program. And so we have companies that we have identified as the best of the best. It's not thousands of people, it's who we really think are the best in their tools or services in the marketing space. So like SEO companies and content providers and social media companies and review generation tools that our consultants essentially partner with to deliver all of those um, deliverables to their clients essentially.
Yeah, I love this. And people who, listen to the show have probably heard me say this many times, but one, I get asked the question a lot, all right? Like, hey, if you were going to go leave high level, go back into the agency world, like what would you do yourself? Like, what would you start?
Yeah.
And I always say, oh, I would go with what I call the digital general contractor method, which is I would sell people on high level as a platform, right? Like
Yeah.
you need all this stuff as just like a base. I would sell websites because it's something I know how to do and, have experience with and feel confident and I enjoy doing it. But I wouldn't do any other services. I would just find people to partner with and
Yeah.
bring them in and out based on what the client wants. And so, I feel pretty strongly that whoever is being paid to generate leads is the first person on the chopping block,
Yeah.
which is why churn's so high in the lead services or lead generation industries. And that's why I love the idea of not, I feel like, I hope if you're listening and you're young and you're starting an agency, you don't feel the pressure that you have to like try to learn how to do ads and
Yeah.
SEO and all this stuff, because in my experience, it's so much better to just hook up with people who are really good at that one thing. Because you can really end up in like worlds of pain if you're
Yeah.
trying to sort of fake it till you make it.
Well, and it's another area where it becomes impossible to grow because now you're like involved in learning all of these different things that could be a full-time position for each of them. And so then you're spread way too thin and you're not an expert in anything at that point. And so that's how we approach all of our engagements. And that's how we train people over the years is come in and specialize at what you're good at. And so, for a lot of our consultants, it's strategy, it's a big picture, it's mapping out the plan and program, it's holding people accountable. But then when it actually comes to getting your hands wet and doing the work, they have really great partners that specialize in those things and they can manage. And so we train our consultants to know enough about like good content and what should be considered and how to create a content plan based on keyword research. Like that's stuff that absolutely a consultant should own and hold on to. But then when it comes to like sitting down and writing a blog post, it's probably not their best use of time to do that because they can rely on a really talented content writer that can handle the heavy lifting on that while they're keeping all of the pieces of an engagement moving forward.
Well, that's why I love the general contractor analogy,
Mm-hmm.
because, right,
Yep.
like the general contractor is not like laying the actual pipes or running the electricity lines. Um, but they understand how that all works together, right? And they
Yeah.
know enough to be able to go find great plumbers and electricians and people to do the individual pieces of the job. And to me, when you're in that role, it's the most fun, because then your job is literally just like staying on top of trends, like, keeping an eye on where the industry is going. You get to go
Yeah.
really deep in a niche if you niche and really understand it from top to bottom, without having to spend your time like figuring out how to do SEO, right? Like, you're literally going against people that have been doing this for decades now.
Yeah.
Um, and so I love that model. And that's cool that you guys have a network that people can just tap into right away. Because
Yeah.
I do feel like a lot of people want to go that general contractor method. They just don't know how, right? It's like, well, I don't have a Rolodex of people to call, and I have somebody willing to pay me right now for SEO,
Yeah.
and I want to take that money.
Yeah, it's definitely a common challenge when people are starting to think about this model. It's like, okay, now you got to find all the people, then you got to hold them all accountable. You got to vet them.
Right.
You got to make sure that they're going to stay to fit within your price points, but also do the quality of work that you're expecting. So it is a pretty massive project to take it on, which is why we spend a lot of time. I mean, we've been developing it for years and years now, and it's such a big benefit to have a group like that on your side, because then every time you have a new client with a new problem or a new area, it's like I have this team that I can tap into right away. Another big benefit in terms of like the contractor model, I agree with everything you shared there, absolutely. But another big benefit is it elevates you in the eyes of your clients, I think, as well. So my clients, because I work directly with some small businesses as well, and they know I'm not the one, I'm not the doer. I'm not just someone they can tell what to do. I'm the advisor. I'm creating the strategic planning. I'm keeping all the pieces moving, but they know I'm not writing blog posts. They know I'm not creating social content. They know I'm not fixing things when they're broken on their website. And so that's another key benefit, I think, as a consultant or agency, whatever your model is. If you're coming in and you're creating the strategy and you're directing all the pieces and you're advising from the beginning, you're not in a situation where you're working with clients and they just tell you what to do all the time, which is very tiring to get in that situation.
Yeah, for sure. And that's interesting. I mean, do you help people get into the general contractor mode? Because it can quickly turn into just clients calling you nonstop of like, I don't like this, I want this isn't working, what do I do now? Da, 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 da. And you do need to be able to protect your time and be like, well, that's not what you're paying me for. Or maybe it
Yeah.
is, and you've already used up your allotted amount of, call me about anything time.
Yeah.
Um, that can be like a real slippery slope.
Oh, absolutely. I've learned that setting boundaries from the very beginning is absolutely essential because once you start saying, oh yeah, we can just do that one thing or that one, it definitely becomes a very slippery slope. I think the biggest way to avoid the slippery slope is doing strategy. So I've talked about it briefly a few times now. I'm just such a huge believer, but for us, strategy is identifying target market, core message, customer journey, execution, calendar, growth priorities. Like in a nutshell, that's what we do when we're developing strategy. So it's a mix of research and then planning. But at the end of a strategy presentation, we're literally saying this is exactly what you should do from a marketing perspective over the next quarter. You can run with it, or you can hire us and we'll implement all of it for you. And so it gives a lot of purpose, direction, focus in your marketing. And so then from there, when we shift into a retainer engagement with a client, we map all of the projects, tasks, deadlines out in a project management tool that we use. And essentially then whenever a client says, oh, I have this idea, I have this idea, I have this idea, it's great idea. We'll put it in, on the bottom of this project management board that, we can discuss next quarter when we're doing our quarterly strategic planning. But we've already gone through the whole process. We've already mapped out the whole plan. We're not going to get distracted because you heard your competitor is doing this and now you think you should as well,
Mm.
ultimately. So that whole process in terms of like taking the time to map it out and reviewing it with your client and having them agree on it and then visually putting it in a project management board and telling them that you're going to stick to it is the best way, I think, to avoid all the shiny object ideas that come through.
Yeah, for sure. So one question that I meant to ask you earlier, because I'd be curious to see if you agree or not, based on, your extensive experience working with people sort of in this model. I feel like people don't realize that it's actually more profitable, because if you don't make relationships and sort of share work and you try to build your own team internally, my experience, and I always call this growing sideways, is okay, you're getting a little bit of demand for something. So you find somebody who can fulfill it. You start paying them. You're paying them for more bandwidth than you actually have work to give them,
Yeah.
thinking, oh, well, we're going to grow, right? We're going to get more people paying us for this type of work. So we're going to need this person. So there's this period where you're overpaying.
Mm-hmm.
And then you quickly, that keeps happening, right? Like the more you sell, the more people you need to add. And you never have somebody who's always at the right capacity. Like they're always over or under. And so when you actually step back and look at the margins, it's never great.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're just like bringing somebody in and essentially taking a commission, it's a very clean engagement in my experience, right? Because they handle the questions in regard to whatever that area is. Let's say it's SEO, like, oh, you handle all that. And essentially you're just receiving a commission at the end of the day. What are your thoughts on that as far as profitability from the model?
Yeah, I totally agree. And also, we work with a lot of partners where we know exactly what their fees are going to be. And so, if we're working with, our SEO team, we know exactly what it's going to be for a local business. We have website developers and designers that we pay a flat fee for every month, and they do all of our website work for ourselves and for all of our clients. And so, we've worked really hard to identify partners that fit it within this retainer model well. And so, when I outline strategy for a client, I'm able to say, this is exactly what my costs are going to be for this amount of work. And then this is where my profitability is going to be at based on that, because I understand what the set costs are. Also, you mentioned like work ebbs and flows. You sign on the client and then you have to hire someone and then they're not at capacity. Like that's definitely a common issue. We work with a lot of part-time project account managers that are absolutely wonderful. I start them on one or two clients when they're getting started with us. And then as new clients come in and their knowledge and experience increases in terms of our systems and processes, I'll add on one more client if that's their goal, if they want to take on more hours. And so it allows me to bring on people that I'm not paying full time because A, there's a lot to learn. B, they don't want to work full time. C, like we don't have the volume at that point. So it solves that problem. We've done a lot of training over the years on this model. And the topic is essentially how to scale without adding overhead.
Mhm.
And so the whole idea is, how do you bring people on, how to serve your clients effectively without having to hire full time.
And is that like part of the duct tape network that you can access part-time project managers as well? Because I feel like that's really hard to do, right?
Yes.
Project managers want to be paid full time, even though you don't have full time work for them. And so it's like a chicken and the egg scenario you get stuck in.
Yeah, we have two groups of basically partners that they're two separate companies that we work with. And so anytime like I want to hire a new account manager or project manager, I'll go to them, I'll say, this is the role we're looking to fill. These are the amount of hours we're looking. This is the experience that I want this person to have. This is the technology I want them to be, up on. And then from there, they'll match us with different candidates and we'll hire them directly from one of those two companies based on who's the best fit. And like I said before, I've done a lot in terms of hiring account managers and project managers over the last 2 years. I'd say we put a lot of emphasis on that. And for me, what's worked really well is starting with the project manager, account manager, managing like 1 to 2 of our clients in the very beginning, and that's it. And prove that they can nail it, prove that they want to stay around long term, and then I'll scale them up with additional hours if it makes sense. We have some great project managers that are, moms of young kids, and they want to work for a few hours a day, and they absolutely rock it, and they're great assets, but like they don't want to scale any further, and that's a great fit for us as well. So finding
Nice.
people like that, yeah, has been huge.
And that's very cool. So talk to me about the average retail price as far as package. Like when you learn the duct tape system and you learn how to do a strategy session with somebody and you learn how to map out a quarter, do you guys have like a target, package price that you want to see people selling at?
Yeah, it's really the nice thing. I think one of the nice things about our system is you can adjust it and tweak it based on your target market. And so we have consultants in the network that are, solo consultants. They work with local small businesses. Like that's where they're passionate about. So they're probably selling strategy for closer to like the $5,000 price point. Like I wouldn't encourage anyone to charge less than that. But then we have, more established consultants that want to work with a handful of clients and they're selling similar packages for like 15,000, but they're working with like national B2B brands, and they're getting a lot more involved in the overall strategy process. And so really that's like the range for the 30 to 60-day engagement in terms of strategy. I would see people anywhere from like 5 to 15,000 is the price point.
Wow.
And then from there, you have the plan in place to convert someone into a retainer to then go into your monthly retainer fees, which we're big on. And again, range of retainer fees that I see from our consultants, I would say anywhere from like 3,000 a month to 15,000 is probably where people are at. But again, it just depends on experience, deliverables, industry you're working in. That's why it's kind of a drastic range.
Yeah, the strategy price is more high ticket than I thought. The $5,000 strategy fee is pretty good for a 30-day engagement. I would imagine that folks listening that are young in their journey might be afraid to sell that. Is that something that you help with, like coaching them on how to sell the strategy engagement?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a lot of how we work with people when they're just getting started. Like oftentimes when consultants or agencies join our network, they are offering some sort of retainer packages and maybe doing strategy for free. I see that all the time. Or they're
Yeah.
not charging enough for strategy, or they're just like baking it into the engagement. But strategy is so important. It is like absolutely essential for so many different reasons. If you don't do it, you're essentially guessing, I think, on marketing tactics. So for example, if someone comes to me and was like, can you redevelop our website, redesign our website? I'll say absolutely, but not until we do strategy because I don't know who your target market is. I don't know what message resonates with them. I don't know how we're guiding people through all the phases of nurturing someone until they're ready to take action. So if I do your website without strategy, I'm going to guess you're going to pay a bunch of money and you're not going to get something that converts ultimately. And so that's how I educate a lot of people in terms of strategy. It's like it allows you to be so much more focused, effective, and impactful in your marketing. And before you do, like if you're just diving into tactics, you're basically just throwing money out there and seeing if it sticks and seeing if it works. And so that's a lot of what we help educate not only our small business clients on, but also consultants and agencies that aren't used to selling strategy either.
You mentioned earlier what I feel like is the key to selling a strategy engagement, which is at the end of this, whether you continue to work with us or not, you're going to have an actual plan that you could take and work, have other people implement. Like, hey, we have our strategy. Here's what we want to do. And I feel like that really puts people at ease. Like, okay, I'm not on the hook to work with you, but I am going to leave this with something of value, even if I didn't want to continue with you specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. So our customer journey is always that someone can to know, like, trust, try, buy, repeat, refer. And to me, strategy is a little bit of a try. Yeah, like, yes, they're paying for it, obviously. But it's a short-term commitment where they're going to get so much value, but it's also an opportunity for them to get to know us and decide if we're the right fit for them. But also for us to get to know them and determine if we want to work with them moving forward, because maybe they're, we just don't see eye to eye. We don't agree. We don't have similar working styles. Like, we can still present a really great strategy, but that's a bunch of red flags in terms of implementation moving forward. So I approach strategy as, let's start here. Let's create the plan. And then from there, like for most of our clients, we move on to long-term retainers, but it has to make sense for the client and also us.
So repeat that mantra for me. That's interesting. What did you say? Like, trust, try.
No, so know, like, trust, try, buy, repeat, refer.
So I think if I'm listening, I'm writing that down because, again, I feel like the majority of young agency entrepreneurs that I speak with are dead focused on leads.
Yeah.
And like, don't think that far down the process. And to me, I said this once on an interview or something, and I was like, oh, that I should write that down and repeat it more often, because I feel like if I'm running ads for someone, sure, I want the conversion off that. But what I really want is multiple conversions, right? I want the person in the database that I can repeatedly market to them over and over every month and turn that one sale into 10, whatever. And that's sort of like what I think you just mapped out, right? We want to get them to trust us. We want them to buy, but then we also need to leverage them, right? We need to get a good review from them, and then we need to turn them into a repeat customer. And these are things that I think young marketers aren't thinking about.
Yeah, I agree. I hear it all the time from our clients as well. It's like, I just need more leads. I'm like, no, you don't need more leads. You need better qualified leads. You need to then retain them, and then you need to get referrals out of them. So it's not just about volume in terms of leads. It's like getting in front of the right people that will stick around for a long time and then ultimately promote you. That's the goal. And so yes, it starts with no. You have to have some sort of awareness, but then you have to have the relationship building pieces of like and trust, so they're willing to try you. And then, we think of marketing into sales and services, because now we're talking about buy. You got to blow them away when they're ready to purchase, like make it as easy as possible to do things like sign an agreement and fill out an intake form and get started. And then from there, repeat and refer. It's like deliver exceptional experiences from a customer experience standpoint, so they stay around, and think strategically about your retainer packages, which I know High Level does a lot of support on. Think strategically about your retainer packages so they stay around, but then also, because you provided such a great customer experience, like, come in and ask for the referrals and have a referral strategy. Because the beauty of referrals, our founder wrote a whole book on it, is they move through the whole customer journey so much faster because there's a lot of like and trust built in. And so when you get a referral, they'll know you, like you, trust you so much faster than someone from a paid ad. And so that's where marketing, yes, awareness is a piece, but it's not the only piece. It's the first piece. But then it builds and builds and builds from there.
That's what I think is so funny about it, which is the easiest marketing is to your already established list, right? So like the easiest thing to do, most marketers aren't doing. They're focused on the hardest part, which is taking cold leads off the internet and converting them. And I think you really just hit the nail on the head in that. What I always say is, hey, your customers think they want leads. They don't know what to do with leads, right? Most businesses are used to referrals. They're used to friends and family referred business that's showing up pre-sold or pre-trusting, like you just said. And so we as marketers have this, if we're good at generating and converting leads, we're creating this mountain of gold that we can turn into referral customers, which is what our customers are they already know what to do with that. And so I really feel like, again, if you're watching this and you don't have a referral strategy in place, if you're not running database reactivation campaigns for your clients, this is all the lowest hanging fruit
Yeah.
that can retain clients for much, much longer, because it's kind of like opens their eyes to the fact of like, oh, it's not all about this check that I hate to write for paid ad spend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like when I write that check, it turns into something that snowballs into something bigger that snowballs again, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. An example comes to mind. I'm volunteering with one of my daughters goes to a outdoor school, and it's this great school. She's still 4, so she does that in terms, and also daycare. But anyway, I'm volunteering to help them with their marketing, and they put all this emphasis into filling their summer camps. And they have like a ton of traction. There's a bunch of kids coming to their summer camps, but ultimately what they want to do is enroll people into their, school year long programs.
Mhm.
And so they have all these people, they put all this effort in marketing and investment into filling their summer camps, but then they're not selling to the people in their summer camp their full school program. So it's another example of like, you generated all of this awareness and you're not doing anything with it. And so that was a great example of like, if someone signs up for the summer camp, like make sure you have campaigns and processes and conversations in place to educate them on the rest of your services. And so that's a way to think about repeat as well. Like if someone comes in for one thing, maybe they're qualified for something else, how can you continue to educate them on your full suite of upsell, cross-sell opportunities?
Yeah, and I think that those are all conversations that are fantastic to have when you're in that sort of general contractor role. Hey,
Yeah.
tell me about your strategy for this. Tell me about your strategy for that. Like I understand that you want leads and we're going to get you leads and we're going to fill the top of your funnel, but like you're probably sitting on a mountain of gold already that we can go turn into, customers and more customers over and over again. So I
Yeah.
think it's so critical to think about that stuff, and I don't think most young marketers are. So hopefully we just spark some light bulbs with that.
Yeah. And integrating, as you said, great point, like integrating those conversations into your initial sales call with people, like ask those questions because it uncovers opportunity. So when you go to pitch them on something, you'll understand where their greatest opportunity, quick wins are ultimately. But it shows how you're different, how you're thinking about things differently. So you're not just talking about awareness like a lot of people are, you're thinking about the whole picture. And so great
That's
conversations to have from day one, but to continue to work on throughout.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's a differentiator, right? I
Yeah.
always felt like when I was talking to clients or potential clients, you could tell that the conversations that they're having with competitors are just all about cheaper leads. We can get you
Yep.
cheaper leads. We can get you cheaper leads. Da da da. And it would always be like, wow, it's refreshing to talk to somebody who's thinking more holistically about my business, right? You're asking questions that nobody's asked me before, which, you know, gives me the sense that you understand the industry, that you're going to do more for us, that it's not
Yeah.
just about like, these razor. Because I feel like when you get into that game, and that's really why I think, and I talk about this a lot, why lead gen agencies have such high churn is because your customers are just getting bombarded with cold emails and calls from people saying they can get cheaper leads. And
Yeah.
so many businesses fall for that trap.
Yeah.
So if you're not doing more than that, your churn is going to be horrible, even if you're great at generating leads.
Yeah.
So I think it's critical to have more of a strategy. And I think it's a good segue into the free offer that you guys have at what was that cool URL? Marketingassessment.co.
Marketingassessment.co. Yeah. So we have a free assessment. I think it's really impactful. It's a strategy assessment. And so essentially you answer 10 questions on key areas of what we consider the most important areas of marketing strategy. And so things like ideal client, core message, and lead generation conversion, all that good stuff. And then at the end, you'll get a full report in terms of an overall score in relation to what your marketing strategy looks like today, but then also a breakdown of score on all the key areas as well. But it doesn't end with score. It also has some really great recommendations. So let's say you scored really low on ideal client. We have action steps in place that are generated in a PDF report as a final deliverable that tells you exactly how to make improvements in that area of weakness, potentially.
So what I love about this is I can go fill it out from the mindset of myself, my own agency, but then I can take the whole experience of this assessment and just kind of like refocus it on my clients, right? Like I could just have my clients go start going through something similar and I could use that as a guide. So I think this probably be eye-opening for a lot of folks because I'm assuming there's going to be a lot in there that they're not typically thinking about. But if you're listening to this interview and you like the idea of paid strategy sessions, I think this will be a fantastic kind of first glimpse into what it could look like.
Yeah. And it'll also take it for yourself first, and it'll force you to work on your own business, like we talked about earlier, for a few moments. But as you said, absolutely, like it identifies what we consider the most important pieces of strategy. And so if this interests you, this topic interests you at all, it would give you some really good insights as to how to start having these conversations with clients, as you said. So I think it's definitely a two win for win opportunity.
Awesome. So that URL again is marketingassessment.co. We'll
Yep.
have it in the link below. We'll have it in the blog post and all of that. So definitely go check that out. Sara, thank you so much for coming on to chat with us.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one.